Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Less Stress, More Joy with Amy Lenaker. It's me, Amy, and I am so excited about this podcast. I know I say that every podcast, but it's true because today we are going to get a chance to talk to Shelley McDermott. And if you're not familiar with Shelley, she is the president of the FirstRule Group, which is a small women-owned business located right here in my hometown of Olympia. And one of the things I love most is when I asked Shelley to describe herself to all of you, she shared that everyone on her team has a superpower and that hers is being known as a diplomatic hostess. So rather than me telling you what that means, I'm going to let Shelley tell us all what that means. So Shelley, welcome. I'm so happy to see you.
My gosh, Amy, this is such a cool thing. I could not be happier for you, and I'm so overjoyed to be a guest. I'm so honored and privileged that you invited me. I hope that we have a good time today and share some things about what we know and just have a great conversation. Thank you again. This is really, really a pleasure.
Thank you. We've had a great time even before we hit record. So even if nothing else happened, I feel like this was a win. So we have to know because diplomatic hostess is not a term we hear often. So tell us, what in the world does that mean?
I've never heard those two words put together, let alone in a title. And so when we stood up our website and we did our first big overhaul of it, we wanted to have something special about it, the superpowers. And I didn't really know what mine was, right? Hostess, because well, I host a lot. I do a lot of entertaining. I cook a lot. I'm constantly looking at recipes. I've way too many cookbooks, way too many cooking apps. But that's sort of my happy place, is to be able to be in the kitchen and creating. And then the diplomatic part, well, actually, my chief of staff, Daisy Orr, put the words together. And I think it comes from just, being a leader for a really long time and, letting someone get through whatever they're trying to say. And even if it's maybe a little off or what you're not expecting, you treat it with respect, just like a diplomat would. And so she connected those two things, and now I proudly wave that flag.
As you should. I love that. So I'd love to dive in a little bit about stress, of course, because we're here to talk about stress and joy. And you run a big company. You have a job where there's a no fail rate. There are some consulting firms where it's like, well, if we don't get this exactly right, it's okay. That isn't the type of projects that your team takes on. You're talking about retirement systems. You're talking about opioid epidemics. You've got a no fail rate on the project. So tell us, how do you do that? How do you minimize the stress in that kind of an environment?
Well, I thought a lot about this question, and I really think that I like and well, I love what I do. And that really helps to take the stress down a notch. At FirstRule Group, we laugh a lot. We're pretty silly. We do this thing before, just about at the beginning of every meeting, called rapport.
Mhm.
So, did you watch the game last night? Oh my gosh, did you buy that new car? All of those kinds of things. We like to kid around a lot. We tease each other, and it's just good fun, right? And so that helps me really like my job, like to be around the people that we're working with, and then just keeping it light as possible, even though we know we're working with some serious heavy duty topics a lot. For myself, I have a kind of a habit of listening to music while I'm getting ready.
Yeah.
Um, my husband sometimes picks things for me. He'll put on Party in the USA uh, in the morning time to get those dance moves going, and that's kind of fun. But I always listen to music when I first sit down at my desk, and I take about a half an hour to read my email. And right now, I'm kind of into Vitamin String Quartet
Cool.
and Olivia Dean.
Mhm.
So those are some of the things I do.
You didn't use the word joy, but that's really what you were describing. These are ways that you have found to infuse little moments of authentic joy through your day. And so many teams that I work with, Shelley, don't do what you described. So many don't take those few minutes at the beginning to just check in person to person, human to human. So tell me more about that. How did that become a natural way of how you lead?
You know, we thought about a few things early on that we thought would make a difference to our colleagues. And one of the things that we do is we talk to them. I meet with every single person in the company as frequently as possible. It's been less frequently since we've gotten bigger, but we're still making an effort to do that. And that one-on-one time, I think, is their time to tell me who they are, you know, and me get to know them on a personal level. That's really important, how was your kid's basketball game last night? Are they going to go to state? What did you do last weekend? Oh my God, I didn't know you were into gardening. What are you growing? That kind of thing. And so that one-on-one relationship, I think, has been a real stabilizing factor for the firm. And I just want people to know that they're cared for, right? And that's just been a huge, huge sort of epiphany for me in the later part of my career, that letting people know how much you value them, how much you love them is the most profound thing that I think we can do. And then there's just another little practice that we have, especially if somebody is having some feelings about something that's going on. At the beginning of the meetings, we invite people to do clearing.
Yeah.
And Kelly Johnston, who you
Mhm.
also probably know and love.
I don't trust people who don't love Kelly.
I know, right? Gosh, how could you not love
At one,
Kelly?
but if I ever
Right,
were to meet someone, I wouldn't trust them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So she taught us the art of clearing.
Mhm.
And for God's sake, if you have a bee in your bonnet, you can get it out. And that's what clearing is for. And we offer it to everyone. People use it. Sometimes the clearing is happy. Sometimes they got something to say and they need to say it. But we do it and we move on. And that has just been a huge, huge success at FirstRule Group. I would encourage everybody to take that practice on and make it a safe place for people to have that conversation.
As you're sharing, it's occurring to me, Shelley, that so much of what you're doing internally is why you run a wildly successful consulting firm, because it's what you're advising people to do externally. And I think when you've got that continuity where it's not, here's what we tell our clients to do, but oh, here's what we do in our own teams, I think that's when trust erodes. So hearing how you are who you are. So whether you're advising a consultant or whether you're working with your own team, that same leadership is there.
We hope that that's translating and we hope that it's transferring out into the communities that we're working in. So thank you.
It makes me wonder about some of the leaders that you've had, because I love hearing about when you've had a positive experience with leadership. So as you think back on your career, is there someone that stands out to you, someone that really had an impact on you in a positive way?
For sure. I don't know if you know this about me, but I did work for the state for about 9 years. And before that, I was a restaurant owner person. And so I had started that at a very young age. And I did that kind of work for a long time. And then I decided that getting a real job would be better suited for me. And, so I toiled away at the state for a few years. And then at one point, I became the operations manager for the claims processing section at the time DSHS and the Medical Assistance Administration, which is now HCA.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's actually where I met my husband. And so I had this boss. She was the section manager and I was her ops manager, and her name was Chris Johnson. And she was a veteran and she taught me so much about how to manage and manage with less rigidity.
Yeah.
I remember a time when we were working through a people problem. And, I think Chris sensed that I had an idea of how things should go. And when we were talking about it and kind of preparing for a meeting with this employee, she said, "No, don't forget, you got to give people a little wiggle room. And I kept that in here and up here. And it made me realize that I had already gone into that conversation. I already knew how this was going to go.
Yeah.
But you got to get people talking. And I have never forgotten that lesson, and nor ever forgotten Chris Johnson. She was probably the best boss I ever had. And I remember her very fondly, and how she really took the time to mentor me and help me on my path to leadership.
This idea of wiggle room is so important because when we don't have that, and I know you work with the gazillion teams, that's a technical term. I work with the gazillion teams, and those that don't have that wiggle room, the conflict is so different than on teams that are willing to say, this is a gray area. How are we gonna figure this out?
Yeah, you absolutely have to. And I think that that is something that happened more frequently with me now, where suddenly we're dealing with, you know, fairly low level crisis, but there's, crisis nonetheless. And, I think I have all the information. I think we have a plan. And then something else comes in, and we have to take a different path. And so I'm a collector of all of that information, and I want to make sure I have it before I make a decision. And so I guess that's something else that I try to do is I have to really be open to changing my mind. And I do change my mind often. It probably drives some people crazy.
The best CEOs I know say that they changed their mind. We have the DSHS connection in common. That was my very first state job. I was working for a leader who suggested that I go through mediation training. And at the time, I had no desire of being a mediator. And she said, you've got to trust me. This is a skill that you will use every day for the rest of your life. And it really is where I learned that concept of wiggle room, that every conversation, every interaction, folks are trying to gauge, is there any wiggle room here? So I love that that came full circle for both of us.
Me too. Wow, good. You go DSHS.
I know they had a great hiring track record between you and me. And still, I think it always saddens me how public sector employees can just get such a bad rap when, in my experience, they are the hardest working, most talented, dedicated people I've ever worked with.
Preach. I feel exactly the same way, and they're so smart, they're
Yeah.
dedicated, they work hard, they do hard things, and they're beautiful and wonderful, and I am totally on the same page with you there. They just do get a bad rap, and they should not.
I think it's a good transition because I'm curious about when we think about teams, either public sector or private sector, because I know you work with both. What are you seeing right now as main stress points on teams? What are you hearing teams report back saying this is really causing us some angst right now?
I think the one of the biggest things that I see, especially even in my own team at times, is that lack of clarity.
Mhm.
Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Do I belong here? Um, why am I here?
Yeah.
And so we did this, we had this sort of going on at First Rule because we've gotten bigger. And so our back office has had to do some flexing and growing and figuring out who's on first.
Mhm.
So we created roles and responsibilities matrix, just like we would do if we were working for a client. And we named an owner, and we named a backup, and we put it on the SharePoint site so that anybody can who they need to call. And it's funny how those simple tools that you've learned early in your career just have that staying power. And so if you're struggling with lack of clarity,
Mhm.
encourage that kind of thing in your own workplace. It does so much to help yourself and to help others. So I see folks struggling with that. And then also, this burnout factor.
Mhm.
I went to your de-stress your mess
Oh, good.
maybe about a year ago or
Mhm.
so. And I loved it because, people were really honest about what was causing them stress. And, one thing I heard from an old friend of mine and former colleague is he said, you know what? you got to compartmentalize this stuff.
Yeah.
And that is really a guy thing to say. But I had to listen to him because I was deep in,
Yeah.
right? And so I started freeing up my weekends
Yeah.
and I started putting the laptop away at night so that I could spend the evening with my family. That compartmentalized word is not the greatest word, but it allowed me to enjoy things and to have that. So at work, I let people know that you don't have to work all these hours, right? Work your 40, go enjoy your life. I
Mhm.
want to enjoy both your work and your life.
Mhm.
I have to walk that talk too,
Yeah.
right? So I take time off. And I know you take time off because
Mhm.
you go on some awesome trips, but you throw that stuff out and go. And that's how I think folks should be dealing with it if they can.
Shelley, you're not using the word boundaries, but that's what I'm hearing. I know you
Mhm.
mentioned you don't really like the compartmentalizing word, but what it sounds like to me is you've created some really healthy boundaries around how to be wildly successful at work because you are. There's no question that the FirstRule Group is wildly successful. And you're doing that without sacrificing your life, which I think is really what people want. It's not, do I want one or the other? It's how do I figure out what this is going to look like for me?
You said it better than I could ever say it. Perfect. Perfect.
One of the darkest moments, and I feel so embarrassed and ashamed about it, is we had gone on a trip to the beach with our kids when they were little. And this, to tell you how long ago it was, I had a BlackBerry. So you know how long ago that was, that I had a work BlackBerry, a state issue BlackBerry. And I had promised my husband that I wasn't going to work over the weekend, but I packed the BlackBerry and I went into the Airbnb and I was in the bathroom and I turned the water on and I'm feverishly scanning email and I thought, what am I doing? Like this is not healthy behavior. And looking back, it was just that moment of I could have left the BlackBerry at home for sure, but it wouldn't have actually caused me less stress because at that time, not being connected, the stress of that just increased. So it's really, I think for me, it's about giving ourselves the grace of figuring out what is that right harmony and how do we incorporate it without sacrificing our lives and the people we love the most.
Yeah, we've been taught and programmed, that this is what it takes. But what we're learning is that you can do both things and do them well without that sacrifice of, your health and your fatigue and, the care and feeding of your loved ones,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 Exactly. Last year on spring break, we had such a great time. We went to Hawaii and we were staying at a place and there were flamingos in the morning. So I would wake up really early and I would go down and I would just write for a few hours, even before the kids were awake. And people kept walking by and saying, "Oh, shut off your laptop. Don't work." But it's like, no, you don't get it. Like I figured out this harmony where I can write with flamingos in the background and then in 2 hours, I'm going to spend the rest of the day fully present with the people I love the most in the world.
Oh, I love that.
And
Yeah.
I would have never been able to imagine that kind of harmony, even just a few years ago.
I love that so much. Wow,
Yeah.
good for you.
I think anytime I can bring in flamingos, it's a good day.
And they're pink. I mean,
I had shared a little bit about that felt like success for me. I'm wondering, as you think about this season of your career, what does success look like for you?
I thought about this question too, and I'm going to tell you a little story.
Please do, yeah.
Um, so years ago, I was in church, and Father Jim was giving the homily, and the homily was about marriage. So I'm thinking to myself, "You're a priest. We love you, but never been married, as far as
Mhm,
I know.
mhm.
But okay, let's hear it." And so what he said was, you need to wake up every day, and ask yourself, how can I be of service to my partner? How can I make his day that much easier? And so I was sitting there and it just hit me right in the forehead
Mhm.
because I didn't naturally do that. I thought, everything that was between us was enough.
Mhm.
And I was happy. And I think he was happy. But I started practicing that at home. And so, like, making him a sandwich before he goes to work,
Mhm.
setting out his clothes, because if I didn't, he would look like a circus clown. And then I started noticing different things from him, right? Where he has a humongous chore list. He's making the bed, he's emptying the dishwasher, he's vacuuming, he's doing all these things. And that's because he's natural at it.
Huh?
He's just a natural servant. And so when I think about where I am and where I came from, and that gift from Father Jim about telling me what service can mean to relationships, I brought that to FirstRule Group,
Yeah.
and I want to be of service to the people that I work with. I want them to know that I love and care for them. I want them to be able to serve others in that way.
Mhm.
And so, as I am in the later part of my career now, I hope that mantra or frame of mind or philosophy or whatever you want to call it really does make its way out into the community because we're helping so many people with our projects. So that is kind of where I hope I land and continue to get that out there so that people can feel the same.
I hope every leader that's listening to you is able to rewind and just play that one more time. Because, or even folks who aren't leading now, but have a vision of wanting to lead, because when you hire the best of the best, which I know you've done, it's what I strive to do, they're going to have options. They're
Yeah.
always going to have choices of other places to work. They're going to be actively recruited to leave your team and join another one. And it's what you just described that would make someone say, I'm good. Thank you, but I'm really happy where I am right now. And so, to anyone who's listening, if you're not feeling that, and I think, I'm not that I think, I know there are so many people, Shelley, who don't feel that level of support at work, who don't feel like they've got a manager or a leader who cares about them the way you've just described. To let people know that it is possible. There are leaders like Shelley out there, and to just keep trying to find one because it's night and day working for a leader that cares about you.
Well, we do have really high retention rates,
Yes, exactly.
just to brag a little. But, we have a party every summer. And when people arrive at the party, I stand at the door and I hug every single person that comes through that door
Mhm.
because I mean that. The first time I met Daisy, it was during the pandemic.
Mhm.
And I got to know her a little bit and got to know her a little bit. And then one day I said to her, you know, if I ever get to meet you in person, I'm just going to give you a giant hug.
Yeah.
Then I completely forgot I said that. And then I finally got to meet her in person and she's standing over there like, okay, we're doing this. She held me to it.
I love the image of you standing at the door because that's the hostess. That's the piece of how we started this very conversation of you welcoming people. At that moment, you were welcoming people into your home, and at work, you're welcoming them into your world. You're welcoming them into this wildly successful firm that you've built over time, which is incredible. I know we're almost out of time, so there's two questions that I just can't bear to not ask you. So, if there is someone who's listening right now, and I have no doubt that there is someone who's listening who fits this description, who is feeling a lot of stress, they're feeling a lot of overwhelm. It's only Monday, the weekend feels a world away. What would you offer them?
Think on the physical side, when you're feeling all those signs of stress, do that 1, 2, 3, 4 breathing and just take that moment out and say, I'm going to get through this moment and I'm going to breathe and then I'm going to hold it and then I'm going to exhale it and I'm going to expel it. it's going to be gone. That's just an immediate sort of thing. But I guess other stuff, sometimes if you lean into it and just like work at it a little bit every single day, you're gonna get there. And ask for help. I know you talk about that a lot when I read your posts about asking for help, how hard that is. But it's so liberating because there are really smart people here that can help you, and they can ease your way, make your life easier. They can show you, oh, I've had to do that before. Gosh, I'd be happy to help you with that, right? So ask for help, give help, you know. And then one thing I say a lot is a quote that I love from Teddy Roosevelt.
Mhm.
And that quote is, comparison is the thief of joy. And I thought that was a really good quote for you specifically because you are about creating a joyful workplace.
Mhm.
Don't compare yourself to Susie over there or Tony over there. You're you and be you. And you're beautiful and wonderful just the way you are. And so if you can stop looking at yourself, as a mirror to someone else,
Mhm.
that is going to take so much of that stress, and those feelings are just going to disappear.
Oh, I love it. My father-in-law, we actually just got him a bracelet that says that because I think as you move through the seasons of life, you not only compare yourself to other people, but you start to compare yourself to who you were. Well, here's who I was 10 years ago. Here's who I was in my 20s. And it's like, but that's just going to suck whatever joy there is. So I love that that's one of your favorite quotes too. And I also noticed that when you were describing the breathing, I did it along with you. So you didn't say, Amy, do this thing with me, but I've just been watching that when other people describe it as humans, we kind of do it along with them. So again, to anyone else who's listening, if you are in a meeting and you see that stress levels are high, do what Shelley just did. Just verbally say, let's take 15 seconds. And yeah, they might think it's corny, but it's also going to have a huge impact. So that's great. Excuse me. So here's our final question. It's my most favorite one. What is something good in your life right now?
This could be the part where I get a little emo, so bear with me. I get to work with my kiddo. See, I told you.
It's beautiful.
Duncan is the finance manager for FirstRule Group.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of moms get to say that they work with their kid. And so it's a very special kind of relationship. I remember taking him along when I was doing interviews at coffee shops and things like that. And he would take the little packet and make sure that we had the questions and that kind of thing. And he was still just in high school. And then he also, when he got to college, he became my admin. Not a good admin, but we kept working at it until we found the right fit for him. So he also did a little bit of consulting. And then one of our three partners that founded FirstRule Group decided she was going to retire. But she did all the back office, all the ops, all of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he was her support for those things. And so he stood up and said, Mom, I want that job.
Oh.
I want to stay where I want to work with you. I
Mhm.
grow. I want to do. And so that is something that I love. And we talk every day. I see him on Teams every day. And I'm watching him grow and live his life. And he's a very fine human being, just like his dad.
Oh, that's great. Shelley, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with our listeners?
One more thing, because your book is called Cheers to Monday. And I want you to know that I like Monday in general. It's a way to have a fresh start every single week. We get together at 9 o'clock on Monday morning and we huddle and we go around. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Mhm.
And as soon as we hang up the phone, all of that changes, of course. But
Yeah.
that's the tone for the
Mhm.
week. And I love that your book is called Cheers to Monday because I am a fan of Mondays. So thank you.
Thank you. When I did the math, most people work about 90,000 hours in their life, which is 2,109 Mondays. That's a lot.
That's a
And I've
lot.
heard so many people who say, I hate Mondays. Like, why? Why would you hate 2,109 days of your life? Let's not ever
Let's
do
not do that anymore.
So to anyone who is in Olympia, they can get to you locally, the FirstRule Group. For those of you not in Olympia, no worries, because Shelley and her team work across the country. So if you're looking for a high quality consulting firm, you've already found them. FirstRule Group will drop all the information in the notes. I hope you enjoyed this episode today. I hope that you hit follow, share it with a friend, or leave a quick review, because that's how other people are going to find their way here, where there's less stress and more joy. You can also pre-order my new book, Cheers to Monday, The Surprisingly Simple Strategy to Lead and Live with Less Stress and More Joy, everywhere books are sold. If anything today sparked something for you, if you saw yourself in something I said, if you've got a question about something I've said, shoot me an email. amy@amyleneker.com. I read every single message. I would love to hear what you have to say. And I can't wait to see you next week. Less stress, more joy, zero toxic positivity. That's the Joyful Rebellion.